Today, I would like to present a study which is entitled Outpatient Nurse Scheduling Under the New Labor Law, Difficulties and Challenges Indicated by a Negative Case Study. I am Zheng-Yun Zhuang. My co-authors, Dr. Hsieh, Professor Ho, are from Antai Memorial Hospital and Yuanpei University of Medical Technology. We provide a negative case of being unable to schedule the outpatient nurses as before in a hospital in Taiwan after the new law is enacted. We also provide some relevant analysis. We know that the nurse scheduling problem is a non-clinical decision in hospital management in contrast to the clinical decisions. In nurse scheduling, the outpatient nurses need to follow the physician's schedule, which is sometimes called the mother schedule, and the demand for scheduling is determined based on that schedule. So if after several weeks the mother schedule changed, the nurse schedule also changed. This means a rescheduling task. The mother schedule has M for morning, A for afternoon, and E for evening time slots for every day in a week. This forms the demand for scheduling the nurses. So, the outpatient nurses scheduling problem is in fact to reassign the given nurses to fulfill such discrete demands. After an analysis, we found that when it is to schedule the outpatient nurses, we have some criteria. These include intramural and extramural scheduling criteria. As shown in the slide, for example, the scheduling demand for the nurses in a week is weighed by the 27 clinic rooms to attend and the 16 time slots in a week. For another example, the load factor, which means the legislations in the labor law, is an extramural factor, but it was usually treated as a fixed factor during outpatient nurse scheduling. However, if such a fixed factor changed, it would spoil such a scheduling problem in the intrinsic. So too the original decision support functions in the hospital. For the scheduling problem, we can first see a previous handmade schedule posted on the bulletin board in the outpatient office of a hospital. From A to Z are the nurses, A to T are full-time nurses, and U to Z are part-time nurses. They are assigned according to the former demand table, but some things are unfair. First, for Nurse G, she only goes to the hospital in 3.3 days. This means that in every week, she has just a bit less than 4 days off, from Thursday afternoon to Sunday night. In contrast, also a full-time nurse, Nurse B must go to the hospital in 5 days. Sometimes she would attend morning and afternoon shifts, but sometimes she should attend the morning and evening shifts in a day without the afternoon shift. If we use the work pattern statistics to compare how the daily work patterns in a day are assigned to the nurses, we also found some more unfair matters. For example, Nurse D is going to the hospital for 6 days, and in 3 days, she only attends a morning clinic and then go home. But let's check Nurse G once again. She has 3 days to work from morning to the evening, and another day with a morning shift. Put aside the fact that her work days are all consecutive. Her work patterns have been not fair to Nurse D. Besides, we also found the imbalance in the same group of nurses. If the workloads for the full-time nurses group and the part-time nurses one are observed. In 2014, there is a model based on binary Go programming to resolve these unfair matters in the above hospital case in northern Taiwan. Their model is called PBGP. However, to our knowledge, including other studies for outpatient nurse scheduling, no law issue was discussed. To understand whether the load factor affects any outpatient nurse scheduling or not, and this is the main aim of this study, evidence should be provided. We study these effects in Taiwan because the new labor law was enacted in Taiwan in the last couple years. With this purpose, we study another hospital case in southern Taiwan, which has also applied the PBGP model. Because someday in 2019, the head nurse argued something about that she may no longer make a schedule by using the model or using a handmade process. Because no internal rule was changed, all these evidence pointed to the load factor. After a study, we found that the new labor standard law in Taiwan has imposed a stricter condition on the working hours that a nurse can work in a day. So a nurse cannot work 3 shifts a day anymore because this exceeds the 8 hours per day ceiling. This means that after the new law is enacted, at most 2 shifts a day are allowed for each nurse. So the model simply fails to obtain any feasible schedule based on current human resource. From the aspect of operational management, this means that the given human resource is no longer sufficient under a stricter decision criteria. Now we have identified a possible effect of the new law on hospital management. We sourced a table of scheduling demands from the studied hospital in southern Taiwan. It has 310 shifts in 42 clinic rooms for the 31 nurses to attend in a week. Then, after we changed the model parameter for the maximum possible shifts a day to 2 shifts in the PBGP model, this model is written in lingo and used by that hospital. We simply get no feasible solution. The story told by the head nurse is verified. So, according to our direction for the analysis, we should try to improve the problem of insufficient human resource. But how many nurses are therefore required as to fit the new law? The Lowthrow method is used. Lowthrow means level of staff requirement analysis, but we modify the method. In the previous study, the size of the nursing staff is decreased until no feasible schedule is found. Then the less feasible size is the MNSSR, or minimal nursing staff size required. We call this method as traditional Lowthrow. In this study, because current nursing staff has been proven to be insufficient, we propose to use an extended Lowthrow method. That is, the nursing staff is increased until we obtain a feasible schedule, and the first nursing staff size we have reached to obtain such a schedule is the MNSSR. As can be seen, extended Lowthrow takes a forward approach, but the traditional Lowthrow takes a backward approach. After we used the extended Lowthrow for our problem, we found the model becomes feasible if we can add 1 nurse to the staff. So we understand the MNSSR in this case is 32. But another question raised. The one we added is a full-time nurse. We are following the traditional Lowthrow method to change the number of full-time nurses. While we have known the MNSSR, how about to change the number of part-time nurses? So the new question is, what if the nurse being added is a part-time nurse rather than a full-time nurse? Another experiment is required. This figure shows the former situation. We added a full-time nurse, so the number of full-time nurses was increased from 21 to 22. This figure shows the situation of what if. What if the number of part-time nurses was increased from 10 to 11? After the experiment for what if, we also have another feasible schedule after adding one part-time nurse. Now let's see the implications from the results for the decision-making of outpatient nurse scheduling in operational management. The result can at least mean two things. The increase in available staff is a must for operations continuity under the new law. This is evident when using the extended Lothrop method to know the MNSSR under the new decision context. Second, the policy to add a full-time nurse and the other policy to add a part-time nurse are both feasible, but these two policies lead to different costs for human resource management. So, a trade-off between full-time and part-time nurses is required when recruiting more nurses to fit the new labor law. Anyhow, the empirical evidence from this negative case study shows several future research directions. For future studies, first, in the study we found that although the two nurse adding policies are both feasible, they lead to different objective function values for the model. So the first question is there a case in which adding a full-time nurse is feasible, but adding a part-time nurse is infeasible? This awaits further case supports. Second, what extent of cost is induced to hire the additional nurses? This would be more interesting if the situations of adding full-time nurses, adding part-time nurses, and any policy to add a mix of both can be explored. This should be an insightful analysis for human resource or financial management. Third, in this study, we only identified the effect of a new law article, which stipulates and decreases the ceiling of working hours every day. As in this case, there are also other changes in the new law which can affect scheduling. We need to identify all of the new legislations by studying the law articles and then use the models to understand the effects of them. For example, currently, we also found that things like the per week working hour ceiling and the minimal hours between two interday works have been changed in the new law in Taiwan. So too the rest time that is required between two work shifts in a day. This means a request for another study about the new law and a complete remodeling work. If another model is established, the decision analysis which follows can use several frequently used measures to analyze and make the comparisons. This is my presentation today. For this recorded presentation, if you have any question, please send it to wayne@nkust.edu.tw. wayne@nkust.edu.tw. I am Zheng-Yun Zhuang.